After 60, you must have these 5 things in your possession. I am well past 80 now, and if there is one thing age has taught me, it is that life becomes much simpler when you finally understand what truly matters. When I was young, I believed success was about collecting more things, more money, more achievements, more recognition, more proof that I was doing better than everyone else. I spent decades chasing goals, solving problems, and worrying about the future. Like many people, I assumed that happiness would arrive once I reached the next milestone. But age has a way of stripping away illusions. As the years passed, I watched strong people become weak. I watched wealthy people become lonely. I watched intelligent people become bitter. I watched ordinary people find peace, while others who seemed to have everything remained dissatisfied until the end. After seeing so many different lives unfold, I realized that there are only a few things that truly determine whether your later years will be filled with dignity, comfort, and contentment. That is why today I want to share the 5 things you absolutely must have after 60. Not because a book told me so, not because some expert made a list, but because I have lived long enough to see what happens when people have these things and what happens when they do not. The first thing you must have is your health. Now, when I say health, I am not talking about having the body of a 20-year-old. That chapter of life is over for all of us. I am talking about having enough health to remain independent, enough strength to get out of bed without help, enough energy to walk through your day, enough mobility to take care of yourself and enjoy the people and activities you love. When I was younger, I took my health for granted. Most people do. You wake up, move around, climb stairs, carry groceries, and never stop to appreciate the miracle of a body that works. You assume it will always be there. Then one day, age begins to collect its payment. A knee hurts. Your back becomes stiff. Your balance is not what it used to be. Recovery takes longer. Simple tasks suddenly require effort. I remember meeting an old friend many years ago. Financially, he was doing far better than I was. He owned property, had investments, and never worried about paying bills. On paper, he had everything. But his health had deteriorated badly. He could not travel anymore. He struggled to walk even short distances. Most of his days were spent managing medical appointments and dealing with physical limitations. One afternoon he looked at me and said something I have never forgotten. He said, "I would trade half of everything I own just to feel comfortable in my own body again." At the time, that statement shocked me, but the older I became, the more I understood exactly what he meant. Money can buy treatment, it can buy comfort, it can buy assistance, but there are certain freedoms that only health can provide. The freedom to go where you want, the freedom to live without constant pain, the freedom to enjoy a sunrise, a walk, a family gathering, or even a quiet afternoon without your body standing in the way. I have learned that many people spend their younger years sacrificing their health to gain wealth, only to spend their later years sacrificing their wealth trying to regain their health. That is a painful trade. After 60, every healthy day becomes valuable. Every morning you wake up feeling reasonably well is a gift. It may sound simple, but some of the happiest older people I have met were not the richest or the most accomplished. They were simply healthy enough to enjoy ordinary life. And ordinary life, when you can truly enjoy it, is far more precious than most people realize. The second thing you must have is enough money. Notice that I did not say great wealth, I did not say luxury, I did not say millions of dollars. I said enough. There is a very important difference. Many people spend their entire lives believing they need more and more money before they can finally relax. The target keeps moving. When they earn a little, they want more. When they have more, they want even more. They convince themselves that peace of mind exists somewhere just beyond the next financial milestone. But eventually, age forces an important question. How much is enough? I have known people who retired with modest savings and lived peaceful, fulfilling lives. I have also known people with far greater wealth who worried constantly about losing what they had. One group slept well, the other did not. The difference was not the size of their accounts. The difference was their relationship with money. After 60, money serves a different purpose than it did when you were younger. In your 20s and 30s, money may represent ambition, growth, and opportunity. Later in life, money becomes something else. It becomes security. It becomes options. It becomes the ability to handle unexpected problems without panic. A medical bill arrives. A home repair becomes necessary. An emergency appears. Life continues to surprise us, no matter how old we become. Having enough financial resources means these surprises become inconveniences rather than disasters. I learned this lesson from watching my parents' generation. The people who suffered the least stress in old age were not necessarily wealthy. They were prepared. They had enough. They understood that financial stability creates emotional stability, and emotional stability becomes increasingly valuable as the years pass. The truth is that many of the things that make life meaningful cost very little. A conversation with someone you love, a peaceful meal, a walk outside, time with family, watching grandchildren grow, sitting quietly and feeling grateful for another day. These things cannot be purchased, yet having enough money protects your ability to enjoy them without constant anxiety. That is why I believe financial peace is more important than financial status. One gives you comfort. The other merely impresses strangers. As I grew older, I stopped admiring people because of what they owned. I started admiring people because of how peacefully they lived. The older you get, the easier it becomes to recognize that true wealth is not measured by what sits in your bank account. It is measured by how much worry is absent from your mind. And that realization leads naturally to the third thing you absolutely must have after 60, something that becomes even more valuable than health and money on certain days, because it touches a part of life that neither health nor money can fully satisfy. The third thing is having people who are truly sincere around you. Not many people, not a large circle, just a few who are real. As life goes on, you begin to notice a quiet truth about human relationships. Some people are present only when life is easy. Some people disappear when things become difficult. And some people remain, not because they gain anything from it, but because they genuinely care. In earlier years, I used to believe that the number of connections mattered. I thought being surrounded by many people meant being important, or at least being safe. But age changes that perception completely. Over time, you realize that a crowded room can still feel lonely if no one in it truly understands you. I remember a period in my life when I was surrounded by many acquaintances. There were gatherings, conversations, shared meals, and polite smiles. On the surface, everything looked full. But when I faced a difficult moment in my personal life, most of those voices faded away. The silence that followed taught me something I could not have learned in any other way. Presence is not the same as loyalty. After that experience, I began to value people differently. I stopped asking how many friends I had and started asking who would still be there when things were not going well. The answer to that question became very small, but very clear. And surprisingly, that was enough. After 60, you do not need a large network. You do not need constant social activity. What you need is emotional safety. The feeling that if something goes wrong, there are still one or two people you can call without hesitation. People who do not judge your silence. People who do not disappear when life becomes inconvenient. These relationships are not built quickly. They are not built through convenience or appearance. They are built slowly, over years, through shared experiences, honesty, and mutual understanding. Sometimes they are built with a spouse, sometimes with a childhood friend, sometimes with a child who has grown into maturity and empathy, and sometimes, unexpectedly, with someone who simply stayed consistent when others did not. I have learned that one sincere person can make old age feel lighter than 100 shallow connections ever could. Because in the later years of life, loneliness is not just about being alone. It is about feeling unseen while being surrounded by people. And that is why sincere companionship becomes a form of protection. It protects your mind from isolation. It protects your heart from emptiness. It gives meaning to ordinary days that might otherwise feel quiet in a difficult way. This brings me to the fourth thing you must have after 60. Something that cannot be measured, cannot be counted, and cannot be purchased, yet determines the emotional quality of every single day. The fourth thing is inner peace, not temporary calmness, not distraction, not entertainment that fills time but leaves you unchanged afterward. I am speaking about a deeper kind of peace, the kind that remains even when life is imperfect. As I grew older, I realized how much mental energy I once spent carrying things that no longer mattered. Old regrets, past mistakes, words I wish I had said differently, decisions I wish I had made in another way. At some point, I had to ask myself a simple question. What is the purpose of carrying all of this anymore? The past does not change because we revisit it. The future does not improve because we worry about it. And yet many people spend their entire lives moving mentally between these two places, rarely standing in the present moment long enough to actually live it. Inner peace begins when you stop arguing with what cannot be changed. It grows when you learn to forgive others, not because they always deserve it, but because you no longer want to carry the weight of resentment. It strengthens when you accept that life is imperfect by nature, and that perfection was never a realistic expectation to begin with. I have met older individuals who lost a great deal in life. Some lost opportunities, some lost relationships, some experienced disappointment that stayed with them for years. Yet among them, the ones who aged gracefully were not those who avoided hardship. They were the ones who stopped letting hardship define their present. There is a quiet freedom in letting go, a freedom that arrives slowly, but deeply. When you reach it, you begin to understand that peace is not found in controlling life. It is found in releasing the need to control what no longer responds to your will. And once a person begins to live with that kind of inner calm, something else becomes visible. The world does not necessarily change, but your experience of it does. Days feel lighter. Thoughts become quieter. Even solitude becomes comfortable instead of heavy. And from that state of mind, the fifth and final thing naturally emerges. Something that many people lose long before they reach old age, and without it, even health, money, relationships, and peace can feel incomplete. The fifth thing is the right to still shape your own life, the ability to make decisions for yourself, to choose how you spend your time, to decide what matters and what does not, to maintain a sense of personal direction, even in smaller ways. After 60, many people slowly give this up without realizing it. They begin to live entirely according to routine, expectation, or the decisions of others. Sometimes it happens gradually, through health limitations. Sometimes through family dynamics, sometimes through habit. But losing this sense of personal agency can quietly affect the spirit in ways that are hard to explain. I have seen older people who were physically fine, financially stable, and socially connected, yet something inside them felt diminished. When I observed them closely, I noticed a common thread. They no longer felt they had much say in their own lives. Everything was decided for them: what they should eat, where they should go, how they should spend their time. Even their preferences were slowly replaced by convenience for others. Human beings at any age need to feel that their life still belongs to them in some way. It does not require dramatic independence. It can be as simple as choosing your morning routine, deciding to take a walk instead of staying indoors, choosing what book to read, choosing when to rest, choosing who to spend time with and who to avoid. These small decisions preserve dignity, they preserve identity, they preserve the quiet sense that you are still the author of your own days. And when that sense remains intact, aging does not feel like disappearance. It feels like continuation. Now, as I share these 5 things with you, I do so not as rules, but as reflections from a long life. Health, enough money, sincere companionship, inner peace, and the right to shape your own life. These are not luxuries, they are foundations. And when even one of them is missing, life becomes noticeably harder after 60. Before I continue further, there is one more important perspective I want to share with you about how these 5 elements interact with each other, and why losing one often affects the others in ways most people do not expect. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate your attention and your presence. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you strength, clarity, and peace in your days ahead. Take care, and I will speak with you again soon.